come from Palm Desert and Coachella Valley, make the trip to be here, and it's quite flattering. I love having all the Mesa students come. Wonderful. I'm going to introduce a few people first. I'm Susan Myrland. I'm the curator. And this is Alessandra Moctezuma, the gallery director. She runs, if you're not familiar, she runs this gallery year-round, along with Pat Hine, who is bringing somebody in. And Alessandra and Pat are the driving forces behind this gallery and the Mesa program, which is really quite innovative and very interesting. Alessandra calls it a learning laboratory. I call it a teaching hospital. And this was a great experience, I think, for several of the students, because they got to work with very complex ideas and some very complicated pieces, and they really saw a process that was at times frustrating, but ultimately very, very successful, I think. So the idea for Lure originated when I attended Art Basel Miami Beach, which, if you're not familiar, that is a cluster of art fairs that takes place in Miami in early December. There are between 23 and 25 art fairs, each one bringing between 50 and 250 galleries, each gallery bringing 7 to 10 pieces of art. So if you do the back-of-the-envelope calculations, it's somewhere around 20 to 25,000 pieces of art that you can see in 4 days. And it's highly distilled because each dealer has brought what they consider their best artists, or perhaps their most saleable artists. So you're walking through the Miami Convention Center or these fairs, and you just have this visual assault of gorgeous, very, very interesting, very provoking art coming at you. And you reach the saturation point very quickly. It's like moving through a grocery store where you have all of the products designed to catch your attention. So in order to catch your attention even more, they put in the little blinking, flashing coupon generators. Because when you have light, sound, or color, line, and form layered on top of other color, line, and form, what's left? You have light, sound, and movement. Those are the tools to catch someone's attention. So I was intrigued by the idea that these tools by themselves have no value. How can you sell a sound unless it's packaged as a CD or as a concert? How can you sell a movement unless it's a dance performance? So I thought this was kind of an interesting idea that you take something that has no value on its own and you apply it to something else to increase the value. And we see this in grocery stores, we see this in shopping malls, we see this in one of my favorite places. There's a night market called the Indio Swapi. It's held out in the parking lot after dark. And you just move from vendor to vendor, and there are pools of light and pools of sound that try to pull you in, but you can move through them. You're not completely distracted and overwhelmed. You balance your attention. The other thing, another idea that was fundamental to this is that these things that have value. This is John Rundazan, by the way. His piece is here with the Angels, so you'll be able to talk to him. These things that have value might be volatile. And when I met with Curtis Bratcher, who created this piece called Rain, this piece called Banquet, and I instantly fell in love with Rain. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. It has sound elements, it has light, it has a little bit of movement. And he told me that he was exhibiting it somewhere, and a guy came up to him and said, "That's gorgeous. That would make such a great lamp over my pool table." And that's a little heartbreaking if you're the artist and you spent hours and weeks, months working on it. It becomes somebody's lamp. But that's often the case with light and sound and to some extent kinetic art. There isn't the long history of value that we have with painting and sculpture. For those of you who are in the new genres class, this might be something to be thinking about, is where does your work fit into this long history of painting and sculpture, and where are you taking it forward? I was also interested in the idea of what holds our attention and for how long. And in today's web interface, movement has come to be equal to spam. You have the little vibrating ads, and so at some level, do we associate movement with things that are deceptive or things that are a little bit junky, things that are going to pull us in to something we may or may not want to go. And that's the Latin root of the word seduction. It means to lead astray. And that can have positive as well as negative connotations. You can be thrown off your path in a way that you didn't anticipate, or you can be led into a new idea that really rewards you. So, also, to these ideas, I wanted to see how these ideas that relate to value and commercialism, how they would work in a campus setting, in a non-commercial setting. And several of these pieces are for sale, but we don't make a strong effort. We're not pushing the sales aspect of the work. We want people to come in and experience the ideas. And it was interesting to see how artists took pieces that would be in a commercial gallery, they have a big price tag on them. But here, you experience it first as an idea, and then maybe, if you're intrigued, you want to pursue it further to see if you can make it your own, add it to your collection. Not many galleries carry light, sound, kinetic work. There's one called Hofstelt in San Francisco. Carries an artist named Alan Rath, who does work with feathers and motors. And you look at this piece, it captures your attention in art fair. But think about trying to live with it. The feathers go like this. It's like, can you imagine having that in your house all the time, constantly distracting you, constantly calling your attention? It makes it very difficult. There are also the issues of batteries and electrical power and motors and things that move. Those are some of the challenges that we face in putting together the show. But you often see light, sound, and movement in public art. And I was thinking that's interesting. Where does that transition happen? Where you can have these pieces that you might not be able to put in the slightly confined space of a gallery, but you can put them out in the public arena where they have more air around them. And in public art, the economics are very traditional. They're very risk averse. There's generally a large process to go through. So why are they drawn to these forms that are not prevalent so much in the commercial gallery system or in private collections? So that's an interesting idea for you to take away from this. Somewhere along the line, this form takes value. So with Laura and Alessandra and I talked about this idea. We talked about the lines between private space and gallery and public space. And there were pieces during the reception that moved out into the courtyard and were taking over the college campus. And I want you, as you walk around, to think about how would one of these pieces work in an outdoor space? How would it be different if it were out in that grassy field out there? Richard's and Brett's pieces, why are they stationed in the windows? They bring people in. They attract people. You can see Richard's Christmas tree from across the campus, and it's so cheerful. It's so hopeful, and it's also very nostalgic. It's what does the Christmas tree say in February? So Alessandra and I began announcing these ideas around last May, and then February opened up, fit perfectly with the title and the concept. We released the RFP in late September with a deadline of early December, and we started installation January 13th. And to some artists, I have a few artists who said to me, wow, we're really starting way far ahead. I might normally be doing this work the night before. We needed all of that time and more. For the museum studies class, who you weren't seeing all of the process, we had 2/3 of the artists creating new work that they had never done before, working with new ideas for new materials that they had never used before. And those materials were in themselves complex. They had gears and motors, and things that could break, and they needed power, and they needed time to work themselves out. So having 2/3 of the artists working with these things introduced a temporal aspect pieces were changing over time. They were changing in color, they were changing in scale, they were changing in scope. Some of them were changing completely, radically, as the artist began to work with the space or to come up with new ideas, think about light, sound, and kinetic, and the concepts of attraction and seduction. So those things were changing and having a ripple effect on the pieces around them. And they kept changing right up until the day of the reception, when it rained. We've had drought for how many weeks? And it rains. The one night it rains on when we have outdoor projections and outdoor performances planned. And so that tested the adaptability and the resilience of the Mesa staff. Up until about 3:45 we had blue skies, so Alessandra and I thought, let's go ahead and put the lights and the equipment and the tables and chairs out in the courtyard. And then at 3:45, one of our student assistants was standing in the doorway, and I just hear him say, whoa. We all look, and it's raining. It's raining. And then the library had a fire alarm. Somebody called the fire alarm. And they evacuated the library. And all the students came over to stand under the eaves here, because this was the closest shelter. And then the fire trucks came. And we had one of our artists parked this car in the fire zone. The fire department was saying, we're going to shove it, we're going to move it, we're going to push it out of the way. And Alessandra ran full speed in high heels across wet pavement to the next courtyard over where the artist was installing his piece to get his ease to move his car. And then, so we pull all the equipment in and stuff out under the eaves. And then we have a group from LA show up, the experimental sound group. And they're offloading their guitars and their record albums and their laptops and their lights and their speakers and their equipment. And all of that is coming in the eaves. And this was now about 4:40. And one of the artists said to me, kind of feels like a circus. I think that's what you had in mind though, right? I'm like, yeah, that's what we were going for. Distraction, illusion, chaos, that's what we got. So, but it still turned out pretty well. We had 355 people here, and everybody came into the gallery because it was raining. And we continued with we put projections on the banner out in front, which we'll also be doing tonight with Moya Devine's piece, projecting on the back of the banner. Beautiful. And the performances took place under the eaves, and it was fun. So, for the museum studies class, you know, these are the kinds of things that you have to roll with. You are the guardian of the ideas. You are the keeper of the concept. And you're also sometimes the guardian of the artist's idea. Because he or she may want to explore some areas, and you need to give them feedback to say, this is how your piece fits into this larger piece. For those of you who are art students, and maybe you're going to be involved in a group show, your piece is going to be seen in the context of many other pieces, and you may not know what that context is until you walk into the gallery and go, oh, okay, so this is what we're doing. Great. That was a learning experience. So, one more thing before we break into little groups. There was an interesting process that emerged from this, was the way the meta aspects of the theme became expressed. And the idea of seduction, as I said, it's luring you, leading you astray. And in seduction, there's a push-pull. You know, you want to put out a tease to somebody but not show them too much. And that's, I think, a fundamental idea behind art. You don't want to give it all away. You want something that will engage the viewer. Some people say that the true art is what happens between the viewer and the piece, and that process, and that change there. So I am luring artists to participate in the show. I'm asking them to give their time, their resources, their skill, their reputation, their talent, and their time. Their time, a lot of their time, they say it 3 or 4 times. I'm luring them to participate. And we are luring the media to come cover it. And we're trying to figure out what are the words that we need to say to put out there to get the coverage, the story, you know, that little hit that gives you both attendance and also some validation for your work. And we're luring the audience to come to a college campus, which in some people's minds there's some barriers to that. You know, they think, oh, it's going to be difficult or whatever. And then we're asking them to come to a college campus on a night when it's raining and there's gridlock and there's everything else. So there were all of these aspects of trying to lure people, bring them in. Even the curtain here was a little bit of mystery. From a practical standpoint, it cut down on the glare on Rhonda's piece, but it also provided a little bit of mystery. And so that expressed in some of the pieces. Alexander Jarman, his piece here in the corner called While in the Office of Structural Analysis, he mentioned that he was exploring the ideas of what's underneath society. When we pull back the veil, what do we see, what don't we see? And when do we like that? You know, when maybe do marketers play with us and we really like that? What draws us in? There's several pieces in the show that aren't what they appear to be at first, so I'm glad that those artists are there so you can talk with them. The idea was that some people would walk in and immediately get the lure aspect or the connection to the theme, and others require you to put in a little bit of work and thereby engaging you more. We told people that this would be an interactive show. I think we did not expect how much people would interact with the work. And again, that's the difference between gallery space, where you generally don't touch pieces, and public space, where you generally do. And we told people with Stephanie Bedwell's piece, Bower, it says on the sign, please come in and enjoy the Bower. And it's meant that you can go in there and you can even shut yourself in and you can lock yourself in should you want to. If you lose the key, that's your problem. But people enjoyed that piece so much on the night of the reception that the next morning it was, you know, the cover had been sort of, it looked like people had wrapped themselves up in the cover and stayed there. You know, the public can really take a hard hand with artwork. They went to Kim Garcia's piece here at Du Bois, and they stuck their fingers in the volcanic rock to see what it was. I didn't see that coming. I didn't realize they were going to be touching that. George Pritzker's piece here behind Dan, it's called 12 Channels. Instantly people walked up to that and they wanted to strum the guitar strings because they thought there was a connection between the guitar strings and the video. Those are sine waves projected into a sinogram projected onto a video monitor. That was a good thing for George because he hadn't worked with these materials before. This was a new idea, a new concept for him. That he was using materials that people are used to touching. Guitar strings and tuning are things that people say, I can touch that. And he was using them in a formalistic way. And so we had to add the words, please do not touch, on the sign, and station a little guard next to it. But again, as students, if you're thinking about the materials that you are going to use in your work, where is it? Is it a space that people will want to touch or expect to touch? Or is it a space where you don't want people to touch? It's been very difficult to avoid climbing into Dan Allen's piece. I look at Dan Allen's piece, I want to climb into it, and that's not good. Dan might be good, but I'm not. So the questions raised by the show that I want you to think about as you walk around. Interesting that several artists ended up using concepts of language, code, dislocation, and distancing. Dan's uses binary code, and he'll explain in the black and white strands how that works. And Dave's uses Morse code. And Barbara's uses sort of a visual code that we all know. We know at some point, even if we don't think about it too much, what that image is in the polarity. We've seen that before. Angela's uses some code in the ideas of faith and belief systems in her piece here in the corner. So there's several pieces that use language and code, and how does that engage us? How do we feel part of that language, and when do we feel distance and dislocated? And then finally, the last thing, most people, probably everybody here in the room, because you're all artists, familiar with the light and space movement. And Richard is probably the most classic light and space, very knowledgeable, talking a lot about light and space. And I love that his piece, which is almost pure light and color, is out in front. And it sets the tone to bring you in from a type of visual language in light and space to perhaps maybe different forms of that language, how they're being expressed by contemporary artists today. So you have both the light and space and movement in Brett's and Richard's pieces out front. What made you decide to go with the black and clear lines as opposed to, say, black and color or black and white? And how do you think that worked?
Basically, I was just concerned with a binary relationship, so they had to be equal but opposite. First of all, one of the lines is clear; it doesn't have any color at all, and and then the other one is black. And they're also a slightly different material. So one is translucent and shining, and the other one is a cotton elastic material, so it's opaque and black. And that's really what I wanted to achieve, was just this equal but opposite relationship, because that's really what a binary system is it's the representation of on or off or anything that are polar opposites and can be clearly distinguished between one another. And then I mix them up so that they start to blur and blend. By crossing the two materials, it makes it difficult for the eye to focus, and other objects come out in your vision when you're trying to see these clear and black lines as they crisscross over one another. So you get some color out of it, and other shapes start to come into view that aren't really there, but your eye sees them there.
And Brett, would you like to say something since Michael's?
Sure. My piece outside in the window started as something entirely different, which started with the idea of the alluring aspect of the word lured. And as I started to develop the pieces, they were becoming really intricate but very small. And I brought a piece in, stood outside, measured the window from the outside, and realized in order to capture the vision that I had originally, I was going to have to do about 150 size pieces that I had started with. So I rethought my entire concept, and the original idea had to do with, well, I was going to present sculpture that was luring not only your eye as a viewer, but also luring the other pieces that it was with. And as I thought about this more and more, there was a predatory prey type aspect that came up, and then I just went right to, all right, I've already lured these pieces, I've captured them, and now with these captured pieces, I will lure everyone else's attention to them. So, and it all just turned out to be about motion and the intrigue of the motion and materials.
Brett and I have been surprised by how many people think that there is someone underneath the bag. I don't know if they think that's what you do at a community college. So, but we've actually had people coming in saying, do you know there's someone in the bag trying to get out? And we said, no, there's no one in the bag.
At the opening, I did. There were children, but not yet. They were paid handsomely.
It's a wonderful piece because you can see people walking by it on campus, across campus, and then because there's so little color, as Dan said about Brett's piece, it doesn't give you very much. You know, there's movement, There's very little color, there's a little bit of shine, a little bit of light, but so people will be walking by, checking their phone, and suddenly that little bit of movement catches their eye. Julie, would you like to say something about yours?
Sure. Mine is the video, Your Body is My Geometry. And I was really interested in this idea of mapping the abstraction of the body and using yoga, which is this very embodied practice, to set up a dynamic between an embodied experience and the virtual space, and using a kind of analog technology of the mirror, which is it's like an early technology, and also a symbol of self-reflection, and confusing the viewer about the point of view of the camera and the artist, and whether the model is an actual person or an image of a person, and setting up also a relationship between the idea of the artist and model, this kind of traditional way of thinking about the body in relationship to the artist drawing it, and using a strange dynamic, like the mirror is the surface, almost the surface of the screen being like a painting, relating it to abstraction.
And you'll notice that there's an interesting interplay between George Pritzker's piece here, All Channels, and the sound of Julie's piece. And those two sounds, George's just has a steady drone of the sine waves. Julie's has music. Those two pieces will come together and they'll be on the same frequency, on the same frequency, and then they'll separate. And Julie's has more variation in it. So because of that variation, that's what captures your attention. And it draws you back to Julie's piece. And then you come back to George's. And there's also the interplay between Julie's piece and John Lawrence, and the bodies and the shapes and the figure. John, since you're here, you want to?
When I started with...
You want to tell them the pieces?
My piece is behind the wall. It's the tower with the figures lit up and floating. When I started working, I'd been working on this figurative study for a while, and then I got the announcement about Blur, and I was like, I wanted to relate my figurative work into this concept. And normally I would cast my figures in wax and make them very solid, and I just changed the material, and I worked with fiberglass. And the process of that, just discovering what happens and how I was casting them and how I was making them, made really interesting, patterns in the figures, and I really wanted to play with that and tie it into creating like an environment where I really wanted to create this space, and kind of a space where you're going to walk into it, and it's going to take you out of your mindset and bring you to like a place of fantasy, a place of whatnot. I wanted people to bring themselves into it, so that was kind of the idea. Old school technique, but it's modern materials. That's kind of where I was at with that.
John Lauren was, particularly I want to give a shout out to you because he had to adapt his idea a lot, I think, probably more than he expected, to our space. In part because the figures are very fragile. And we had the logistics of people bumping into them. And they needed to be up high enough that you had that sense of space above you, but then the bottom of the feet, and there's some sharp edges there, would be right at eye level. So Alessandra came up with the idea of sloping them upward so that you wouldn't, there wouldn't be a practical risk of somebody getting poked in the eye. And then we had a lot of issues with the placement of the architectural piece and how high that needed to be. And so I really want to thank you because you may have thought that you would just come in and deliver your piece, and you didn't realize you were going to have to reconfigure quite a bit of it. Barbara, can you tell us a little bit about yours?
Actually, I think this piece is made up, Sex Bites is made up of works from two series. The ears are from Mutation series, and then the drawings are from the Irony series. And the Irony series, is a mapping of the magnetic fields that are everywhere that we don't see. So it's actually a drawing of something we can't see. and that has an effect on us. And so when you're looking at it, you're basically mapping yourself onto that field. And so they come together. That's the sex bite, I guess, is that, you know, they're these kind of robotic electronic figures that have an effect on us, and your attraction or repulsion is about where you are looking and where you are mapping yourself onto that field.
Thank you. Dave, can you tell us a little bit about zodiac procrastination, Dave?
Yes, I can.
Let's pick two that are far across the room.
Let's pick this one, we're close to this one.
Okay.
So one of my problems and things is I'm fascinated by technology and I'm frightened by technology. I feel like every advance forward either destroys or minimizes the period before it. So we were talking about this piece. What this piece does is it goes through all the signs of the zodiac, from Aries all the way back around to whatever's before Aries, Pisces. It goes through those and it uses an old technology that really is what moved us forward, Morse code, which now is no longer used. I went back to the signs of the zodiac also because the signs of the zodiac at one time were very important. We used to use the stars to navigate all around the world. Now we've made those stars through satellites. So now we don't even use the stars for anything but decoration. So I wanted to make something that was very decorative too, to go through these things. So the upper piece, the upper part of the piece, which you can see, all those dots and dashes, that would be a dot, and coming soon will be a dash, I'm sure, dash, show that visually. You can't hear the music, but the music is also based on Morse code. So I took a dot and made it a quarter note, and a dash was a full note. So all the music also represents that. And I just kind of find the lure of technology, like I said, both frightening and exciting. So this is my whole dichotomy. And the other piece over in the corner there, procrastination, is again about our bowing to technology. It grew out of a joke with my daughter, and I made a piece that basically would give you all sorts of positive reinforcement if you only pressed a button and asked for technology to show you the way. It's that simple.
Procrastination is the small box there on the pedestal. We had a little trouble with it, had to take it out. Goes back to Dave. And in that one day that it was empty, we had an art class come in. Was anyone in that art class when the pedestal was empty? Okay, good. So this art class came in and they see an empty pedestal with light shining on it and a little label that says procrastination. And they assumed that that was the piece. And we got in a really interesting conversation about if that's the piece, then when the artist delivers the piece, does the art end? Is it a performance piece? And I'm thinking, can we sell it? How much do we sell it? Because it's always so hard for artists to figure out how to price their work. How would you sell an empty space on a pedestal with a light on it? But actually that art class really, they did a wonderful, wonderful analysis of it and the layers of depth that came out of this empty piece of meaning. So Dave was, I think you were a little disappointed when you
I was the opposite of disappointed. I was amused and I asked if I could keep the card, so I've kept the card because that is a piece. You don't luck into them that easy.
And Richard, can you tell us about yours out of the window?
I have to start by saying it wouldn't have happened if we hadn't have done that very jazz improv-like collaboration over email where I threw out an image, an original image of Christmas lights on campus, which struck me as odd because you don't see Christmas lights on campus. And then you kept throwing these constraints back of where I could and couldn't put it, where there was or wasn't power.
Yes.
You know, and so it moved around on the campus. Then I tried to move it inside the gallery. And you said no, and then you mentioned the window, and all of a sudden everything clicked. So what clicked? I have a lot of problem with linear descriptions, the standard language that people use to describe contemporary art, because it just doesn't seem to work very well in a lot of cases. And my theory as to why that is and why my artist statement is so tiny is that I gave up a long time ago. At least I don't want to over-determine the work for people who are there to see it. But I also think that like a really good contemporary artwork is it's a network of ideas, metaphors and concepts and symbols, and it really is represented a lot better with a diagram than it is trying to write an essay with n paragraphs or something. So I'm just going to throw out some ideas, non-networked, of what's behind that. The one I already mentioned, which is Christmas lights on a college campus, and the ties to lure that comes in with that, because you have specific lures for specific fish, and the fish that celebrate Christmas will get happy, and the fish that don't celebrate Christmas get depressed. And that's the reference there. It's actually psychological research that people who don't celebrate Christmas get bummed out by Christmas decorations. The other idea, aesthetics that get so thoroughly embedded symbolically in cultural practices, you can't see the aesthetics anymore. And that's definitely something I think happens with Christmas. Christmas has an aesthetics, but we see right through it. We look at the meaning, we don't look at the aesthetics, and it kind of fossilizes out. So this was an exercise in trying to archaeologically excavate specific aesthetics in Christmas. As a thought experiment, if you take art history, you might want to try taking all the different movements and art historical periods, apply it all to contemporary American Christmas aesthetic, and see if you can't recreate all of art history with bits and pieces of Christmas. Just an idea. And then I think the best one for me is the one thing that doesn't make this light and space piece. Because light and space is almost always focuses ideologically on perception and perceptual. It's supposed to exclude everything out. But this has a metaphor working. And I don't tell people about the metaphor that I'm going to here. But what I love about this gallery and the history of Mesa College in the context of Claremont is historically a one-story community. When it was first built, everything, all the houses, all the stores, everything was one story. It's never two-story. So when you see these tall buildings, this is the new Mesa College, but the old Mesa College used to look like this building. And it would all kind of look like the houses across the street. So when you walk in the gallery here, you got your front door, and you've got your two bay windows on either side. It's one story. It looks just like a house. And I thought, this is perfect. When you offered me that window, I read, I can put a Christmas tree in the window. And it's basically, the metaphor is, think of a group show as Christmas. Right? I left the presents off because we're looking at the presents in this room.